All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Lunchtime live stream. It's good to be here with you guys today, and apologize for not being here last week. Last week I got this thing in my eye. Long story short, I sat in the dark for about 3 or 4 days, so I didn't get a chance to really get out there and talk with you guys. Hilarious stuff. Kaylee Harmer just posted that Christopher is currently shaking his booty to the countdown music in anticipation. And according to my co-host, Mr. Robert Harlemert, his son just yells "Daddy" the whole time that he's on the screen. So definitely glad to see Christopher's ready for the live stream today. If you're new to Catalyst, this is your first time on one of these, and you're not sure who I am, I'm John Kelly. I'm the discipleship minister, and I do whatever else Dave doesn't want to do. That's not a lie. Actually, we're in the midst of a really weird transition with my position in the church. Not in a bad way, just kind of rearranging some roles. This online stuff is becoming more and more a part of my job. So just continually working on that. Couple things real quick. Christmas Eve service is coming up. It's going to be 5:30 p.m. on Christmas Eve. This will be live in person and online. So if you're somebody who is still not quite sure about coming in yet, that's okay. We will have the service online. The worship team has been working hard to put together an incredible worship night for that. So just be prepared for that. Let me go ahead and bring in my co-host for the show here, Mr. Robert Harlemert, whose son is shaking his booty right now, getting ready to watch you talk.
He probably is.
So how's your last week been, man?
Last week, I think it was good.
Yeah?
I can't remember. I assume it was good. I'm here. I'm happy, so it wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad. That's good. That's good. So did you hear there's a new coffee shop in town?
Yes. And I see some people that have already gone there and taken photos of it. I'm excited.
Yeah.
That this is a thing. And I hope it stays and it still works. I hope it doesn't go away. It's Nicholasville, so you never know what's going to happen.
Well, Rhea went today, and she brought coffee home, and it's delicious. And she had a cinnamon roll, actually, and said it was absolutely incredible. Actually, here she goes. Said it's so good. Cool. But it was, I'm really interested. I'm hoping it sticks around because we can't seem to get coffee shops to stick around here in Catalyst, in Nicholasville. It would be nice if we had a coffee shop in Catalyst. That wouldn't be bad.
Yeah.
If Betty Kibler's online right now, if you want to start a coffee shop, feel free.
Yes.
Cinnamon rolls are really good. And here's the thing. I just kind of want to put this out there. If you are a member of Catalyst and you're watching this right now, one of the best things we can do as a church is get into local business.
Yes.
And support local business, support the economy here in Nicholasville, especially right now when jobs are just messed up. People are having trouble finding work. When we see a new business opening up right now, I think the best thing we can do is go in and support it. And let's just be honest, it's coffee. So, I mean, you can't go wrong with that.
Yes.
So, Rob, tonight is the last night of youth ministry for the year 2020.
Yep. We extended a little bit longer. Actually, last week was supposed to be our end, like when we planned it for the whole year. But due to, stuff, it seems that this is one of the only kind of normal things in the students' lives. It's a little bit more normal now, I guess, since they can go to restaurants and stores are open back up, which is good. But we want to give them some more normalcy. So tonight's the Christmas party. We'll do the White Elephant gift exchange. We'll sing a couple Christmas songs, and we keep it simple, but it's fun. It's good. Looking forward to it. And I believe Jenny has a Christmas party as well tonight, and I know she's excited about that as well.
Very cool. So let me ask a question. What does Christmas look like for the Harlemerts this year? What are you guys going to be doing? Is it different than normal, or is it pretty much going to be your normal Christmas?
I think it's the same. So Christmas it's not as big as Thanksgiving, which Thanksgiving was weird for us. We were missing a lot of people. So we always do Christmas Eve, like lunch with Kaylee's family, and then we do Christmas Day with my family around lunchtime. We'll eat a meal, maybe for dinner or something like that. But what about you? What are you guys doing? I know sometimes you like to travel to see family as well.
Yeah, we've kind of started ever since we had the kids. We
Yeah.
decided Christmas was at home. Like we do Christmas morning at home. And then we usually go to my mom's in the evening because she only lives about 35, 40 minutes away. And then usually within a week or so, we try and get down to Ria's dad's down in Neon. Well, actually, it's not Neon anymore. I think he lives in a town called Jackhorn.
Jackhorn.
Yeah. So,
I like Neon better. He needs to move back.
but that's out in Eastern Kentucky. And with everything going on with COVID, it's just been hard to figure out when to get down there. I think we're actually going down in January, like the first part of January to go see him. So that's way different. You know, that's way different than what we've done. If you're listening or watching right now, what are you guys doing for Christmas this year? Has anything changed for you guys? Are you doing things like normal, or have things changed drastically? Are you pretty much kind of staying at home with just your family? I know for Thanksgiving, that was our family this year. We didn't go anywhere. It was just us at home with the kids, and it was good, but at the same time, I missed everybody. So would be.
I know.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where this has been a weird year, a really weird year. But I will say, for my family, even though we'd rather be out doing things with people, it's been a lot of fun getting to spend so much time with the kids.
Oh yeah.
So that's been really cool. Let's talk a little bit about the sermon from this past Sunday. Dave, you and I have been talking a lot about just how good the messages have been in 2020. And it looks like Dave's going out with a bang. Like he really is with these messages. And this week, his main thing was that those who are good at making excuses are rarely good at anything else. And he said he got that from a soccer coach, right? That's where that came from.
His college coach.
His
college
soccer coach. Yeah. So, Rob, when you read that, those who are good at making excuses are rarely good at anything else. What do you get out of that?
Yeah.
From personal experience.
First, when he said that, I had no idea. Typical Dave sermon, no idea where he's going to go with this. And even read the scripture, no idea. I was like, clearly have no idea what he is going to talk about, which is most of Dave's sermons.
Right.
But I had to agree with him whenever he said that. I was like, well, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Most people who continue to make excuses don't really do much. They would rather, I think they spend more energy trying to get out of something than actually probably just sit there and do it. I think if people just sat or just accepted what was coming at them and did it, they would have a lot more energy at the end than all the energy that people spend trying to get out of something.
Right. So have you had anybody you've had to deal with, like, obviously no names or anything, but have you ever had to deal with this with people before in the past?
I wouldn't say, maybe, I don't know. I can't say that. I don't hang around people, I guess, that make like an over amount of excuses. Because normally with the work that we do and the way that our family runs, they can't hang very long because we're so fast moving.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe at some point, but I can say when we actually get to talking about what Dave talked about, I would say I have experienced that part, which we can talk about later. But just people just making excuses about random things. And then never completing anything. Probably not too much. What about you?
Oh man,
you're a lot older than me. So,
I did youth ministry for 11 years.
Yeah,
trust me, I've had my share of excuses over the years.
Absolutely.
My favorites were always the ones that, especially when I was in Wisconsin, and obviously I'm not going to name names or anything, but I had a student who wanted to be on our worship team. Because we had youth worship on Sunday mornings. We had like 140 kids showing up for a youth worship service, every Sunday morning. And we had kids that always wanted to be on the worship team. And you had to try out and you weren't guaranteed you'd make it. And I had this one kid who was really talented. And I wanted to get this kid on the worship team. And they just kept saying, yeah, I'll be there this week. I'll be there for a tryout this week. And they wouldn't show up.
Yeah.
And then they would come again. No, I can't this week. Well, could we do it another week? And that week, well, I can't make it.
Yeah.
And after a while, I just quit trying.
Mhm.
And I think for me, I'm really patient with people, more patient than I used to be when I was younger. And I'll let people go for a while, but there will come a point where everything you say now sounds like an excuse. Like,
Yeah.
what'd you have for dinner? And they tell me what they have for dinner. It sounds like an excuse to me, even though it's not an excuse. That's what it sounds like, because everything that I see and I hear now is an excuse. And you have to wonder with God, does he get like that with us sometimes?
Mm.
Where he's telling us, I want you to do this. I want you to live like this. I want your life to be better. And here's how you can do it. And we make excuse after excuse after excuse. And it comes to a point where God's just like, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I want to think about Moses for a second. This is off script. This isn't actually on here. It wasn't in Dave's sermon. I want to talk about Moses for a second, because Moses, when God said, I want you to go to Egypt, I want you to go there and you're going to free my people. And I don't know how long the actual conversation was with Moses and God, but I feel like it went on for a while. And I feel like the whole time Moses was trying to figure out some way not to go.
Yes.
He was doing everything in his power to come up with an excuse so that God would not send him to Egypt. He tried and he tried and he tried. And then God did something really interesting with Moses. He took away every excuse.
Mm-hmm.
Every time he had an excuse, God said, well, then we'll do this.
Yep.
Yeah, but what about this? Well, then we'll do this. And so I want to ask the question, what happens when God removes excuses is what shows the true integrity of a person. I mean, what do you think about that? You know, when there are no more excuses left and yet you still refuse to do something, what does that say about you as a person?
Yeah. So the one thing I always say when people ask about doing God's work or doing it for the right reasons, I said, you're in the right place whenever you do something, not because you feel like you need to, but because you know it's right. I think the feelings will come after that, or your heart will lead you towards that. So if you're outside of those realms, that realm of thinking, you have some work to do with your integrity. And it shows. Like, I think that's like the most blaring thing, where people won't do something because out of convenience, even though it was the right thing to do. You know, service and I mean, there's 1,000 different things that come to mind whenever I say that. But if you are presented with something in your life, and especially Moses, he knew right off the bat it was the right thing to do. He knew, like, they've been enslaved for hundreds of years, his people. If God came to him and said, yeah, I'm going to deliver my people and you're going to lead them, you're first, it seems like, oh, well, yeah, okay, I'm going to go do that because that's the right thing to do. So when he eliminates, it was cool because he did it. Like, it showed how he really did care about his people, because he went and did it even though he had excuses. And at the end of the day, it was like, okay, I'm still going to do it. You're right, God. What do you think?
I think it comes down to the idea of preference versus what's right.
Yes.
Yeah. I really think that's just what it comes down to. It's between those two things. It's like, I just don't want to. You know, there's so many times when people ask you to do something, you just don't want to do it. But what do? Instead of just saying, I really don't want to do that, you make excuses. Well, I've got this going on, or there's this thing, or there's that thing. And if you're listening or watching right now and you've done that, tell us a story, because I'd love to hear about like times where you guys have had to get creative with coming up with reasons for not doing something you just simply did not want to do. Because I know for me, there are so many times that I'm asked to do things and I just don't want to do them.
Yep. Yeah.
And sometimes it's a right or wrong thing. Sometimes it's not a right or wrong thing. Sometimes it's just a thing.
Yeah.
And we don't want to let people down.
Mm-hmm.
And so we make excuses. And so I think a lot of it just comes down to preference versus need. If there's something that needs to be done, we should probably do it. I don't think we should be making excuses as to why we can't. But it seems like that's what we do, and we're just afraid to say no sometimes. It's so funny, man. I when I ask people questions in the church, and I'm sure there might be a couple people watching right now who've experienced this with me. If I need something from somebody, I will typically look at them, and the very first thing I will say is, "It is okay to say no."
Yeah.
Like, and I mean that. Like, it is okay to say no. You don't have to say yes to what I'm asking.
Yeah.
But I'm asking because you're somebody who could do this thing that I need done. But again, you're allowed to say no.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think people need to feel that permission sometimes with things. Because instead of saying no, they'll maybe say yes and then not follow through.
Yeah.
Or things like that. But back to what we were talking about before. What happens when God removes excuses shows the true integrity of a person. And I think that with what Dave was talking about, it comes back to that whole, do you want to get well? Do you want to get well? Now, somebody, I don't know who this is. It's a Facebook user, but it says, JK doesn't allow me to say no. And my wife says he got me to dress up as a turkey this way. Now, again, I did tell whoever these people are, I did tell them you can say no.
That's true.
So I'm going to pull up Facebook because I've got to know who's commenting here because that's just really funny to me right now. But
I'll see. Oh, it's Jonathan Cleefit.
Oh, is it Jonathan? That's funny. That's funny. But it's true. I mean, like, I'm real big on it. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna have my feelings hurt if you don't want to do it. That's really funny. Jonathan Cleefit. Okay. But so yeah, so do you want to get well? And this was the part where Dave did the button hook. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Where Dave is always like, when he's doing his messages, for you and I, we probably have our own idea of what we think it's going to be.
Yep.
You have yours, and you're probably reading his sermon through that lens. When I get his sermon notes, I'm reading through them through my lens, and rarely does my lens match Dave's lens when it comes to where he's going. And he threw me for a button hook because he talked about the man who was wanting to be well.
Yeah.
And he was sitting by the water, and all he had to do was dip down into it to be healed, but he always had an excuse. Well, somebody's always walking in front of me, or nobody will help me, or it seemed like it was a big woe is me story.
Yeah.
I never read that scripture that way before. Did you?
Yeah. So I did a study on this scripture because this is a big, this is one of the scriptures that we use when we talk about the church plant on why we need to, like, our mission and vision for the church. But we normally tell the story through the perspective of Jesus, not the perspective of the lame man that was on
Right.
the mat. We think about what Jesus did for him, and that's what we normally teach about. We never share like the one little part where he gives the excuses in life. And that's, I swear that's Dave's whole view on reading scripture. It's he'll read commentaries and everything. It's like the blaring thing of like the easiest, not most important, but the easiest thing to read the scripture through that lens. And he's like, I'm going to choose a different lens to look through.
Yeah. Well, we both do video stuff and photography stuff, and we have lenses for our cameras.
Yeah.
If we had lenses like that for reading scripture, Dave would have the most gigantic collection of lenses you will have ever seen in your entire life. Am I right?
You're right. That is,
I mean, it's just
a perfect way of explaining it.
I mean, he just has a really great way of looking through that. So, okay, let's talk about, do you want to get well?
Mm-hmm.
When you read that, talking through this whole idea of making excuses, what is it that you see when you read that?
You want to get well. So from a medical side, I see the difference between having a longer lasting fix to something that is a lot more painful But in the long run, it will be more beneficial. Or quick fixes that you will still have the pain because it will come back eventually of what you're going through currently. So a lot of people try to weigh their options when it comes to big medical decisions of like surgeries and stuff like that, to fix like their knee or something like that. People will go through the pain of not going through surgery because it's going to take a lot of work to get to the point where you can walk again, or you can do a quick fix of taking certain medication, maybe strengthening your knee a little bit, but you will always be limited to that injury. And it seemed like the guy at the well was going through that situation. He was sitting down. He'd been there for 38 years, almost a full generation. And he accepted his life as that, where there was this goal of, I would like to walk again, or I would like to live a normal life again, but I've accepted this and I'm just going to live with this situation. And Jesus presented him with a longer lasting, more beneficial way to live his life.
Yeah. I think you were talking about me a little bit.
Okay.
I hate going to the doctors. Okay.
I see where you're going, but that's not what I was thinking about.
Well, follow me on this. I don't want to go to the doctors. If my wife's on here, she's probably shouting amen from the rafters right now. But, I had this thing in my eye. I was just talking about it when I first logged in, and how it's a sty. And I've never had a sty before. And typically when people get them, they're on the edges of their eyelid, right? Yeah. They're usually on the edge. Mine is underneath my eyelid, about a half an inch back. And it rubs on my eye a lot. And it is one of those things where Jonathan Cleefit just commented again, and he said, where is it? Oh, he does not allow me to say no. And then my wife, she did say yes, he does. So proof that I don't go to the doctors if I can help it. But this sty is rubbing my eye. My eye is bright red. It's hurting. And so about a month ago is when it first popped up, maybe 2 months ago almost. And I went in and I put a salve on my eye for it. It's called erythromycin. I don't know how I remember that because I never remember what any medicine is called. If it's not like aspirin, ibuprofen, or cough medicine, that's it. That's what I get. So I put that on my eye, and after about a week of treating it, it was feeling really good. And so I went on a backpacking trip to Alabama, came back. My whole family had COVID, and we, stayed home, quarantined, did all that fun stuff. After doing that for a little bit, the sty came back, and this was last week. Came back on like Tuesday. Wednesday, I woke up and I couldn't be in light. I had to sit in complete darkness. And if I would have just gone to see a doctor when it first happened, I'd have been fine.
Yeah. And
instead, I put it off and I put it off and I put it off because I didn't want to, one, pay to see a doctor.
Yep.
2, I didn't want to pay to buy medicine. And 3, I just kind of wanted it to go away.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though it doesn't do that.
Yeah.
And so to go back around, like that's a very circular way of getting to where I was going. When we have this thing of I want to be well, there's usually a ...
Yes.
after it. It's like, I want to be well, but here's my conditions for getting well.
Yep.
I'm somebody who battles weight loss. Like I struggle to lose weight. You know why I struggle to lose weight, Rob?
Why?
Because I love food, man. Okay. I love food. And now I've lost over 30 pounds since July.
Awesome.
I'm battling that right now, and it's Thanksgiving, Christmas season, and everybody, which won't talk about it, but this is the hard time to lose weight. Mm-hmm. Then after the first of the year, you get back on it again. And the goal is to lose about 100 pounds by this time next year, total.
Yeah.
But to do that, I have to work against myself. I have to work against myself. I have to stop loving the cause of our problems.
Yeah,
Right here. You know how many people say they want to quit smoking every year?
that's true.
And they can't quit smoking. You know why? Because they like to smoke.
Because they like smoke. Yeah.
They like to smoke. People struggle with pornography. You know why they struggle with pornography? Because they like to watch it.
Yeah.
And sin, if it wasn't something you enjoyed, you wouldn't do it.
Yes.
And that's the real kicker here for us is sin is something that Satan has fooled us into thinking is good.
Yeah. I think it's
so,
the scariest thing.
Yeah.
Like sin, like you enjoy sin, which people don't like to admit.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be a person that's known for I love sin. And like, which is true. We all do. And we all, yeah, you're right. You're 100% correct with that.
Yeah. I think that's the crux of the situation for so many. It's not that you don't want to, it's not that you want to continue sinning. It's that you've got it in your head that one, you need it.
Mm-hmm.
And two, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it gets dangerous, is when we're like, well, my sin's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I kind of think of sin as bricks. And you're building a wall between you and God.
Mm-hmm.
And every sin that you're okay with, you're just adding another brick in the wall.
Yep.
And you're creating another barrier between you and God. And I feel like a lot of times, because we have this idea that it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's okay.
Yeah, Satan likes to play the long game. There's very few times in Scripture that it's like an immediate thing. I think the only story that I can think of is the story of Job, where it was like an immediate change.
Everything was taken away.
Yeah, it was. At least it seems when you read the story that it was immediate. But everything else, it's just this slow process of getting people to slowly move away, just one step at a time away from God.
Yeah.
Or go back the way that they were before they entered into a relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
In our current lives.
Yeah. Kirk in Kentucky says it's like meeting with friends for lunch. Good talk. Thanks, Kirk. I appreciate that. That's awful nice, man. Yeah, I would say too, I think of David, King David.
Yeah.
And his situation with Bathsheba. And if you're someone who's on here right now and you don't know much about the Bible or the Old Testament, David was a king of Israel. And one day his men went off to war. And when they went off to war, David did what kings are not supposed to do, and he stayed home.
Yep.
And while he was home, he was out one night on his roof, and he started watching a woman bathe in another building. And he began to lust for her. And as a king, he has all this power. He used that power, invited her to his home, basically had his way with her, sent her off, and then later found out that she got pregnant.
Yes.
And one of his most trusted soldiers was her husband. And so he calls him home, tells him to go lay with his wife because he needs to cover up this thing that he did. And when he did that, it just turned into this cycle of one sin after another, after another, after another. He actually has this soldier killed in war, puts him on the front lines. And it's like you said, it all starts at one simple thing.
Yep.
And it's usually an act of disobedience.
Yep.
One simple act of disobedience. And with David, that act of disobedience was not going out to war with his men and being a king. He stayed home. Yeah. And when he stayed home, he opened himself up to laying his eyes on something he didn't need to see. Then that rolled into continuing to watch when he should have known better. And then it went from continuing to watch to acting on his desire. And then from acting on his desire, then covering up the sin that happened because of that desire. Yeah. And I don't think that's far from a lot of us when we've struggled with sin in our lives. That doesn't, I mean, maybe we're not having an affair with, a coworker's wife or something than trying to have them killed, but we are being disobedient. We've got Saw on here. He says, I'm too old to enjoy sin anymore. It takes too much energy. I like that. I like that. But sin is one of those things that if it wasn't attractive, if it wasn't something that drew us in, we probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But look at the world we live in right now. Sin is celebrated. I mean, come on, the song WAP. How in the world was that on mainstream radio?
Yeah, I haven't heard it. I've just heard about it, but
Yeah.
stuff. People push the envelope because they can, and in this season of 2020 and even the past year 2019, what I've learned is just because you can doesn't mean it's right.
Right.
And even if you look back at old movie people, they've even talked about that of how the different ratings have changed over the years of what you can and cannot say. And some of these movie people push for the higher rating so they can do more.
Yeah.
And
so they can get away with more.
So they can get away with more. And you and I, we've talked about this before. We listen to music and we've seen certain movies and we're like, it could have been just as good if they didn't add this scene.
Yeah.
Or it would have been just as good if they didn't add this lyric. And that's the same with our lives as a whole. It's our life will be just as good and actually better, and according to Scripture, if we just don't add that extra part in our life.
Rob Pemberton put something in here really good. He said, "Do we delay remedy for painful things because we feel we deserve it somehow?" And that's a really interesting statement to make, because you look at the man at the well, or the man at the water, and
yeah,
was he wallowing in his own self-pity? Was it something where he didn't feel he deserved to be well? I mean, if you read the New and Old Testament, when somebody was sick like that, it was always blamed on sin.
Yes. Yeah.
And so did he think, I'm a sinful person, so I deserve this? Did he wallow? I mean, how many people do you know who, when things go bad, they turn into Eeyore?
Yeah. We've talked about this before. What just came to mind is people won't come to church because they say, I don't want to burn down the building. I don't want to burn down the building because I walked through the doors, or I don't want the lightning to strike the church because I'm there. And they think that their sin is too great, or that their sin covers everything. So why even try?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that was part of Dave's getting at, where he wanted to get better, but he didn't want to be well.
Right.
He just wanted the immediate fix of his current life.
Well, and I think that's the allure of sin. It's immediate gratification.
Do we delay remedy for painful things because we feel we deserve it somehow? Maybe for some people.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can say that I have ever thought that, because whenever something bad happens in my life, I want to get rid of it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't choose the right path. I can admit that. But I try my best to do what is right to fix the situation, even though it might cause immediate pain, like having a hard conversation with somebody, or admitting that you're wrong because you did something dumb. But at the end, it's a lot better because it equalizes the situation.
I was in youth ministry in the late 90s and early 2000s, and cutting was a big deal.
Yeah, Dave mentioned that, I think, in the sermon, right?
Yeah. Was it this one or last week? I can't remember which one, but cutting was a big deal, and it was a way to feel something. And it's kind of a warped mindset, but it was very real. I had it in my youth ministry. I had to deal with it with some kids. Dave obviously had to deal with it as well. But I think it really goes along with what Rob's saying here. Sometimes we want the pain, as weird as that sounds.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you or I, or even anybody who's watching this right now, but some people just really want the pain. And the sad thing is God doesn't want the pain for us.
Yeah.
He wants to alleviate the pain. But a lot of times we bring the pain on ourselves. And
Yeah.
great comment, Rob. Great comment.
That's good.
Lisa Sarah said, Satan is very good at making something sinful seem almost okay or not so bad, but he's patient and will pull you away from God little by little. And that's kind of what we were talking about earlier, just that slow play, that slow game that he likes to do. Satan is a master manipulator. That's what he does best. And he celebrates the big sins, but he really celebrates the little ones.
Oh, yeah.
He really celebrates subtlety. That's one thing that Satan is very good at. If he knows that he can get you with something subtle, he's coming.
Yeah.
He's coming after you.
Yeah.
Here was another thing Dave said, because I want to make sure we move along. I don't want to run out of time here, but there will always be those who criticize your healing. There will always be people who criticize your healing. It's funny. We don't live in a society that really wants to celebrate wins for people. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, especially recently, more recently than in the past. I've recognized that people love to share how much they hurt and all this stuff, but have no action in making it better. It's they want the I'm sorries in their life.
Well, and I feel like anytime somebody is successful, people want to knock them down. Like there's a level of a desire for everybody to hurt as bad or worse than you do.
Yeah.
Like nobody wants, and I say nobody, that's obviously not, I'm not meaning nobody, but I mean, it just seems like nobody wants anyone else to have success. Nobody wants anybody else to heal. Nobody wants anybody else to lose a bunch of weight. Nobody wants anybody else to win the lottery. Nobody wants anybody else to get anything good. They want people to all be miserable.
Yeah.
And it's weird how prevalent that is. Rob Pemmer just simply said yes.
Yeah.
You know,
the 10 Commandments is something that we see all the time that we talk about. It's a very important thing. And even non-Christians follow the majority of those 10 Commandments. Some of them are illegal and are still like murder and stealing and stuff like that. But the most subtle one in there is coveting. And that's something that people, I mean, it's part of the 10 Commandments. Like it's the big one that is part of the big few that God gives. He gives a bunch of other things that we need to follow as well, but it's one of the big 10, but it's the one that people forget about the most. And I think Satan attacks the most, especially maybe not in other countries, but in America, it's so big because we have this idea that we all have the same opportunities in life, or we have we have the ability to pursue anything we want in our life. And when somebody gets there sooner than us, we view it as, one, I want it, and two, it's not fair.
Right.
Which is the exact opposite of what we should do. It's a slow game of just eating at you and eating at you.
Yeah. Rias actually said, misery loves company. There's a reason this quote exists. And I would say, absolutely, there's a reason that quote exists. Dave mentioned this in a sermon this year earlier on. I can't remember. I'm just trying to remember which one it was, but he basically said, your success doesn't what's the word I'm looking for here? Your success doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
Like when someone else is successful, the last thing I should be is upset.
Yes. Yeah.
If there's one thing we should all be good at, it's celebrating other people's successes. I mean, we should be. Like, when somebody else has something great happen to them, the first thought out of our mind should be, wow, that's awesome.
That's cool.
Go you. But somehow we feel like when someone else is successful, when somebody else has something good, when somebody else does something great, then we have to figure out a way to be angry about that, because that's not us.
Yeah.
If you've ever been in a conversation with somebody who likes to one-up people, you probably know these people. You talk to them, and no matter what you say, they have something better.
Yes.
No matter how well your child is doing, their child is doing better.
Yeah.
No matter how great of a situation you've got at work, their work situation's better.
Yeah.
There's this almost competitive thing with a lot of people where they have to be better than you or they aren't good.
Yeah.
They have to be better than you or they just simply aren't good.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
No, you're right. I think all of us struggle. Maybe it might not be one-upping, but we go back and forth between good things that happen in our life, and we never stop to really appreciate the individual things. So nothing is important at the end. So if me and you are having a conversation and you share something that's happening in your life, and then I immediately come around and share something that's awesome in my life, both things are good, but neither one of them were celebrated.
Right.
And that just eliminates the love that you can share through celebration.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
I think that's more dangerous than the misery loves company situation. Because when somebody is hating on somebody else for success, it's very obvious that person is successful. But if everybody's just sharing their successes and there's no celebration, then everything is useless. And nothing seems important,
right,
to anyone. And I
it's
think
kind of like it's like from the movie The Incredibles, when the mom looks at the son and says, "Everybody's special," and he goes, "That means nobody's special."
Yeah, that means nobody's exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
If there's one thing we should want to do, we should want to make people feel special. Somebody gets a new job. I don't want to tell them about my job. I want to celebrate what's going on for them. I want to be happy for them.
Yes.
If somebody comes through some huge obstacle in their life and they defeat it, I don't want to sit there and try and compare and contrast. I just simply want to celebrate.
Yeah.
And I would hope that would be all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's even in our line of work. We see it. You've probably experienced it. Maybe you've done it. I know I have on the one-up thing, or done the sharing of what's happening in our churches amongst our peers, other ministers. And that, I think that has really hurt our group of churches, the Restoration Christian Church, especially in Lexington. If you talk to new ministers that come in, they got a new senior minister job or youth ministry job, and you talk to them about the local church, specifically the Christian church, it's like, yeah, we don't talk much. Like us ministers, we get together like twice a year if somebody plans it.
Yeah.
We don't actively go out of our way to talk to other people, other ministers, which is really sad. And the reason for that is we don't want to sit around and it's just this one-up game of my church is doing this, my church is doing this, or the negative part where somebody is so jealous that their church is not as successful in a certain small area than another church. And humans will be humans, even if they're ministers. And
right,
it's a reality for all aspects of life.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to finish up with this one last thought, and it goes with what we're talking about today, but it also goes beyond that, and it's more situational with where we are right now as a country, as a church, and that's Philippians 2:14 and 15. Do everything without grumbling or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God without fault in a warped and crooked generation. And right now we are in, and I think you touched on it maybe earlier on when we were talking, but we live in a very finger pointy society. And right now, if I think Dave maybe posted about this on Catalyst Life too, but very much if you wear a mask, you don't trust God. If you don't wear a mask, you obviously want everyone to die. If you support Trump, you're racist. If you trust in Black Lives Matter, you're a terrorist. It's just like these extremes right now. And what's happened is we're building divides within the one place where there shouldn't be a divide, and that's the church.
Yeah.
We're building up a divide in the one place where there should be unity and love. Victoria Hertak just said, yes, I've always been such a complainer. God has been working on me and pruning me, this bad quality out of me. Well, Victoria, I've never heard you be a complainer, so I'm just going to trust that you're saying that is true.
I agree.
But that's awesome. I mean, when we can see that there are things that we need to work on, and we allow God to work on those, that's great. But I see right now, I've talked to a lot of people over the last few months, and it's so easy to just point the finger.
Yep.
It's so easy to start complaining. It's so easy to start arguing. And the reality is, with all of this stuff, the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we come to that?
Yeah.
And when it comes to, do you want to be healed? It's so easy to just be like, my life stinks. Everything's bad. Look at what's wrong with me. Again, Eeyore.
Yeah.
Instead of, you know what? I'm a child of God. I want to be well.
Yeah.
I'm going to do what it takes to be well. And I'm going to be a child of God without fault in a warped and crooked generation.
Yeah.
That seems to be something that we don't strive for. The church is one of the most amazing things in the world. Should be the most amazing thing in the world. But sometimes it can be the biggest group of complainers in the world. And it just shouldn't be that. Rob, you've kind of been blessed a little bit by working at Catalyst, because we don't deal with it nearly as much here as I have in other churches. But what's been your experience dealing with complaining and arguing and grumbling and all this stuff?
So the most complaining and grumbling in the church happens on Sunday mornings. It does not happen throughout the week, because the majority of church people have nothing to do with this is sad, but it needs to be. Most church people have nothing to do with their faith outside of Sundays. So the whole frustration about church just doesn't come up in their everyday life until they show up at church again and they feel like they have to say something. So at Catalyst, one of our main identities is Sundays is for worship only.
Yeah.
We don't deal with money. We don't deal with grumbling or complaints, even if it's a good one and it could benefit everyone. We don't deal with it on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
You can come and talk to us or send us an email and we'll deal with it on Monday through Thursday or Friday as well. Most churches don't have that policy.
Right.
And so a lot of my friends and my family members who have been elders, who have been church ministers, they don't get to worship on Sunday mornings.
Right.
So then you enter in, which is this is the craziest thing. You allow grumbling and sin to enter into your Sunday worship. And
it's not worship at that point.
No. And even if you didn't know that it happened, if you're just a regular person, you don't normally grumble, you're there to serve and to worship. If somebody comes up to your senior minister or your worship minister or the person who's leading, like the MC who comes up, does a welcome, if you interrupt their thought process by complaining, it will hinder that experience for other people.
Yeah.
And will hinder the worship.
Well, and worst of all, you're hindering yourself.
Yes. Yeah, that too.
You know, you're really hindering yourself. Rob Pemberton said, when something upsets, I ask myself, does this exist outside of Facebook?
That's good.
Rob, that might be the comment of the day. That's I wish everybody felt that way, because there's so many things we just get upset about that when we really take a look at it, it's not even really a thing. Dave is actually on Facebook right now, and he said, complaining and grumbling within the church is simply friendly fire. People on the same side shooting each other. Friendly fire isn't friendly, and I couldn't disagree with him on that. I just can't. I agree with him 100%. There's no need for it.
Yeah.
Grumbling, fighting within ourselves is the last thing we need. Danielle Farina's on here, and she said, that question always hits me so hard. Do you want to be well? She said, sometimes I get complacent when it comes to my healing because it can be overwhelming, but I don't want to be that way. I want to be able to live as the healed and whole daughter of the King I was created to be. That's beautiful. Yeah. 100%.
There's a lot of maturity in that.
Yeah. This is something that Rhea and I do. She actually put it on here to deal with friendly fire in our house. We remind each other same team.
Yep.
Anytime Rhea and I get into an argument, and it doesn't happen often, like we're pretty blessed on that one. We don't get into a lot of arguments and things, but anytime one is started, one of us will look at the other and say same team.
Yep.
Because there's no room for that within the marriage, and I don't think there's room for that within the church. So, but right now I think is a critical time in the history of the church. I think there's a lot going on. There's a real telling, and then Rhea said this could work outside the home too. We have to remind ourselves we're on the same team.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I think we've really got to be careful because the world is watching.
Yeah.
I tell parents all the time when I was in youth ministry, everything you say, your kids hear.
Yes.
Everything you say. And right now, there is a world watching the church to see how we respond to what's going on in the world and how we respond to each other. And so it is so important right now as a church that we're unified. We don't have to necessarily agree on every little detail of everything, but on the big stuff, we need to be together.
Yeah, I agree.
Laura Baxter, agreed. What we allow to continue will continue. So we need to be careful what we open ourselves up to the first time, which goes back to what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Just that idea of Satan works the slow game. So,
yes, it does.
Well, Rob, it's about time to start wrapping things up. You got any big plans for this week?
No, it's still hunting season, so you never know.
Nice.
You never know.
Nice.
I'm still convinced, and if Jonathan's still listening, I'm convinced there are no deer in the woods.
Sam Kibler got all of them, I think.
Yep, Sam and Dave.
So Sam and Dave taking up all the deer from us. I know this weekend on Saturday we're taking our kids and we're gonna go look at Christmas lights. We're just gonna drive around town and look at all the Christmas lights and let the kids kind of be excited and everything.
You also have to remember the greatest football team in the United States will be playing on Saturday at noon.
That will be at noon. While my son is napping, I will be watching that.
So make sure you're there. That's you never struck me as a hunting type.
Yeah, did you just see that?
Yeah.
Victoria Hertak, Rob hunts. So yeah, I'm excited. Christmas is definitely going to be different this year, but one thing that will be the same for us as a church is that we will be having the Christmas Eve service on the 24th, not the 31st, because that's New Year's Eve, and that would be really weird. But we are having it on the 24th. That's going to be live. And it's going to be online. So if you're someone who's still kind of sheltering at home, that's fine. But you will have the opportunity to watch the service live. And we will do our best to make sure it's a good experience, whether you're there or you're at home.
Yes.
More than anything, I'm getting Honduran food at noon, Laura Baxter. My wife is going with you, so I'm a little jealous of that. But so that there's a lot of stuff going on right now for all of us. The only thing I want to say is just continue. Just continue. Don't stop being a follower of God. Don't stop doing the things that disciples do. Don't stop worshiping. Don't stop giving. Don't stop praying. Don't stop discipling. Continue.
Yes.
It's a pandemic, but God is still here.
Yes.
God is still in control. And right now, more than anything, people need the church to be the church. And so I just want to say, if there's one last thing I can say to everybody, continue.
Yes.
Don't stop. Keep going. And Dave wanted to say one last thing here. Remember who the real enemy is. It isn't your family or your church or your neighbor.
Correct.
That is the truth. Our battle is not against flesh and blood. Remember that. Our battle's against Satan. It's against his demons, and that's who we're fighting against. And so continue, guys. Just continue. We won't be back on next week because it's Christmas week and there's a lot going on, but we will be back 2 weeks after that, heading into the new year. I guess we'll actually be in the new year at that point, so it'll be the first week of January. So looking forward to getting back on here. Rob, as always, thank you for joining me on here. You're probably the smartest person I know. Next to Dave.
True. You're lying to.
I like hanging out with smart people. I like hanging out with smart people. I mean, you're smart, but you're not as smart as Dave. Come on.
That's true. Dave is the smartest human being on the face of this planet.
Yes, and we're really fishing for a really good bonus this year. So, Dave, if you're hearing this, we think you are so smart and good looking and athletic and a great hunter. And with all that said, guys, have a great week. We'll see you in a couple weeks. God bless.